Welcome back to Until All of Us Are Free, a year-long multimedia education project dedicated to Black liberation as collective liberation. I am your host and the creator of this project, Ijoma Olulo. We're continuing our discussion on Black August. We're going to talk about political prisoners. And I feel like we don't talk about political prisoners in the United States nearly enough. But fundamental to Black August is the discussion of political prisoners and what we need to do to liberate us all. In today's episode, I'm in discussion with my partner, Gabriel Teodros. And there's also some segments from an earlier discussion I had with Richie Reseda, who is a producer, filmmaker, abolitionist entrepreneur, and an all-around amazing human being who started a lot of his very important community work while imprisoned by our prison industrial complex. When we talk about political prisoners, I think
Mhm.
a lot of people don't get that we have active political prisoners right now. I think
Yeah,
a lot of times when we think political prisoners, we think of other countries. And when we think of the US, we think of at most the 60s and 70s or earlier.
absolutely. That's something that I was just reading about yesterday. I'm low key ashamed that I don't even know the number of political prisoners, folks who got incarcerated and are still serving time over what happened in 2014 in Ferguson. You know what I mean? I feel like I owe a lot of my life to political prisoners like Mumia Abu-Jamal, who also is still incarcerated, who wrote these books that literally helped me save my own life when I was in high school. But people getting locked up still for fighting back against police brutality. I mean, when you look at what happened also in August, by the way, with the Mike Brown rebellion in Ferguson, that started as a vigil and the police interrupting a vigil. And from there, you still have Black people incarcerated over things that happened in the wake of that. This is a moment of me saying, I feel like I really need to connect with who's doing the work of like tracking all the political prisoners in this country because
Mhm.
I don't know the number. I don't know all their names. And that's a shame.
People are disappeared into these systems
That part
every
too.
day. And we have political prisoners from 2015, 2014. We have political prisoners from 2020. We don't recognize people as political prisoners. Right now, I talk a lot about Stop Cop City
Yeah.
because in Atlanta, right now, there have been people fighting to stop the building of Cop City, which is a giant militarized police training complex in a Black and brown area outside of Atlanta in a forest that a lot of the locals depend upon,
Yeah.
not only for like the bounty of the forest, but also for environmental protection as well. And local community members who do not want militarized police forces in their neighborhood have been protesting this. And so, one, people have been murdered for protesting this, but also protesters have been facing RICO charges, organized crime charges for protesting this. And we do not act as if they are political prisoners, but they are.
Right. Absolutely. And also the cop cities that are going up around the country is something that, like, doesn't get talked about, you know?
Mhm.
Atlanta was probably the one that made the most noise, and it doesn't make as much noise as it should. Like, most times, I talk to people that aren't in our immediate network about cop cities, it's still the first time they're hearing about the one in Atlanta,
Right.
and the fact that there's more just popping up all over the country is wild.
Right.
It's terrifying.
I would encourage people who live in democratic jurisdictions who feel like there's not a cop city. By them, I would encourage them to use Google and see where the closest cop city is to them because these are not things that only happen in the South. And if it was, it's not like people in the South are disconnected from us or somehow deserve less treatment than everybody else. I say us because I live in Los Angeles. But Los Angeles is a perfect example. Los Angeles is a democratic run city with a black woman mayor and recently had a black woman DA and all Democrats, our Democratic leadership has poured almost all of our money into LAPD. to the point where we don't have any money to fight fires in fire country.
You don't have to necessarily be a political advocate or
Yeah.
activist to be a political prisoner. You can be made a prisoner for political gain or political purposes. And that also makes you a political prisoner. And
Yeah.
every person being snatched up off these streets by ICE to fuel this administration's and white supremacist capitalist bloodlust is a political prisoner right now in this fight for control over the United States.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we recognize that we are rapidly increasing the amount of political prisoners in our system. And the legitimizing of that puts the Black community at incredible risk. The legitimizing of being able to snatch people off the streets
Yeah.
is already coming for us and will come for us so much harder. The moment they realize that you could show up at a kid's graduation and grab people off the streets, nothing will stop them from grabbing any Black person who dares speak out against what they're doing.
I do feel like we're rapidly going like all the way back to the US being out loud about human trafficking. And with that, in the spirit of Black August comes, okay, what are all the ways we fought this before? What can we learn from them? What does abolition look like in 2025? Like for real, like we talk about it all the time, but this is the moment we're in.
The assumption that people with guns who work from the government are going to be the solution for everything simply does not work. And we all get to choose to live in a world where all our needs are met, or choose to live in a world where some of our needs are met. And then we have people with guns to use violence to make sure that everybody whose needs aren't being met do not affect us. And that's a choice we get to make. I think it's beyond conservatism or liberalism. It's about, do we want to live in a world where everybody's needs are met or no? And if we do, what does that mean about how we have to live?
I think it's so important for people to understand that people were out in the streets, that we had uprisings against this at a time when it was even more unacceptable by society to do so, and at a time when it was much easier for the state to use immediate violence. And I
Mhm.
want people to understand that we have that in our history, right? We are afraid of going backwards. I get that. And we should be. The language we have now to describe where we are was created by people in times far harsher than this to describe what was happening. And I want that to give us strength in knowing that we have been there before and we have fought
That's right.
and we can do it again. And I think giving into fatalism in a way is a disrespect
Mhm.
to people who were going to be free to the last breath. And when we think about George Jackson, W.L. Nolan, Jonathan Jackson, we think about all of these people who said, even behind these bars, I will be free to my last breath.
That
We
part.
honor that by knowing that we can be free as well and by continuing to fight on. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Until All of Us Are Free, a year-long multimedia education project dedicated to Black liberation as collective liberation. I am your host and the creator of this project, Ijoma Oluo. I look forward to sharing more with you this month about Black August, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of it. And be sure to go to untilwearefree.com. That's where you can find all of our past episodes and the episode notes that I make for each episode. These episode notes will have information about United States political prisoners, so be sure to check those out. But all of the episode notes contain a lot of useful information. And while you're checking that out, you can also become a paid subscriber to Until All of Us Are Free. Your support helps me make the best content I possibly can. It is my goal to not only create quality content, but to keep it as accessible as possible. And I really can't do that without your support. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to celebrating more of Black August with you.